Um, Winona Lake is, some people call it the orthopedic capital of the world. So we have, if you have knees, shoulder, hips, and any sort of those related materials, it's probably been
That's where
either
we go.
designed or manufactured in the
Interesting.
Warsaw Winona Lake area. Uh, we don't really know how it happened. Just the big used to be the big three that we called it. Just their world headquarters were right here. Two of the three have merged. John Depew was bought by Johnson Johnson, and so now it's
Hmm.
uh, Johnson and Johnson Depew plus a company called Stryker, which is up in Kalamazoo, and then Zimmer Biomet are the two companies that merged. So um, that was the longer version than you asked for, but
No, I
we
appreciate it. I think Stryker's a customer too, by the way. I
oh, good.
recognize that. Stryker.
That's correct. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen them on our list.
great. Yeah, so we've started Winona IT is only 6 years old. January 2019, going on 7.
Hmm.
And we have about 70, somewhere between 70 and 75 employees. And so we consider ourselves small. And I think we want to stay in this range, primarily serving customers out of our county, but we're hitting surrounding counties as well. And one of our clients um, is part of the DIB, or at least a subcontractor, and they need to work on CMMC level 2. So that's where we are. We're not pursuing becoming an RPO or a C3 PAO, not at least not in the short term anyway. We're just not in the right position to do
I
so.
In order to serve them, you may have to go through a certification yourself, and Amy can probably speak to that.
You don't
If you have
actually.
questions.
Yeah, if you're helping advise them, you don't really need anything. It's helpful to have somebody on your staff who's been through CCP training, and that's a more valuable investment than being an RPO or paying for those fees. So it'll cost maybe $3,000 to put someone through the first level of CMMC training, which is CCP.
Mhm. Great.
It'll cost you $5,000 to be an RPO. You get a lot more bang for your buck bragging about the person that has been through training and knows everything about what assessors are looking for than you will from just paying the AB $5,000.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and our focus at this point is being helping them get ready
Yeah.
for the pre-assessment, really, because they believe that they've been well on their way to NIST 800 171 compliance, and a lot of their practices would lean that way. And I can tell just by interviewing and walking around and talking to people that they have put not only time and effort into security controls, but their
Mhm.
documentation is severely lacking. So if they had anywhere close to an assessment today, it would go almost nowhere. So we went searching for a tool, a service that would help us catapult that, and that's why I'm here.
Here you are.
Well,
Okay.
you're in the right place. I was doing advisory work for a company a couple of jobs ago and looked at 6 or 7 different GRC tools, and then I looked at FutureFeed, and there was just absolutely no comparison. So,
Great.
I've been a fan of FutureFeed I was a fan of FutureFeed for 3 years before I started working for the company. I will tell you though, if you're just getting started in this business, um, the starting point with those companies is not really the best place is not necessarily documentation, because documentation should be around the plan that they already have. And what most companies struggle with is understanding where CUI lives in their organization to begin with. So you really would
Great.
be well served if you're new to this to take them through a scoping exercise. And you can do that however you like, but it's really helpful to talk to them about their contracts and to see if you can help them identify clauses that indicate
Mm.
that they have CUI in their contracts, and then just talk to them
Right.
about how that information flows throughout their organization, then create like a Visio diagram of the flow of
Hmm.
CUI of what is, and then have a conversation with them about how to maybe reduce the footprint of that And then when you figure out what you want the footprint to be, that's when you start saying, okay, this is what the footprint's going to be. Now let's talk about policies and procedures that are going to go around that ideal state. And that's the point where, FutureFeed is super incredibly valuable in helping you generate dynamically your SSP and your plans of actions and milestones and all that.
Great. Amy, thank you very much for saying that. That actually reinforces what we've actually done so far. So we hired a consultant, Arnold. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Villeneuve.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they'll know. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, and he's been working with us and actually helped create a data flow diagram. And
Perfect.
so we're in that process with them, helping to hone um, their
Perfect.
understanding of what their CUI is and where it is. And we've already made the decision. Basically, thankfully, they're contained to one facility. Most of their CUI, from what we understand, is physical, and within the facility itself, a lot of it comes in through shipping. They're not sending it out, so we'll see if that's true. Still a lot of auditing to be done, but
Mhm.
thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. That
Sure.
stamps it in my head. Great.
Good.
So, and a lot of this, the service provider training starts not with the tool, because the tool is just, it is a tool, it is a platform. Um, so I like to start. So I'm not a service provider or a consultant anyway, but I think you need to introduce them to the process. So this is a slide that I gave on a presentation 2 hours ago
Oh.
to a bunch of construction people, and getting them to understand that it's not a spreadsheet that you're filling out. It's a process that you walk through.
Mhm.
And I would say the number one thing, and Amy, you can correct me if you have a different experience, but the number one thing that people say in retrospect, after they've completed the certifications, there were two big challenges: getting the C-suite to understand and support the initiative, and the cultural change that has to happen at the organization, so that when they are doing the right thing, which in many cases they already were, they were securing information, they had firewalls, they had anti-malware, all those things, but that's only half the controls. The hard part is keeping evidence that you're doing the right thing, because you don't pass the CMMC assessment just for doing the right thing. You pass when you have a pattern of evidence. And that just is not,
Mhm.
it's breaking the norm for so many companies.
Mhm.
And once they get that, they start to get the pattern. Okay, the controls are pretty simple. We're going to do the controls, but we have to make a record that we had a meeting to review this threat that came in today that we heard about. Even though it was nothing, we got to get into the habit of writing it down and putting it down as evidence. And so that's what FutureFeed is there for. So often that we start away from the tool, because the tool will get there, when you need it, it'll be there for you. So the other thing that you may find helpful, and we don't charge for it, is the DOW, CMMC, Everything You Need to Get Started book. It's free for download, so you can give it out electronically to people. I think the last version is about 150 pages. It gets a little bit bigger. And now that Amy's here, I bet you it's going to grow again, because we're going to ask her to add some chapters. You can also, as you're promoting your company, if this is the space you want to be in a deeper way, you can
Mhm.
order copies and we can white label them for you, so that
Wow. Great.
if your team and you and your team and your customers are all reading from the same book, literally, and that whatever flow, we have a lot of diagrams in there and whatnot, you know that the workflow that you want to talk about is on page 56. You can turn on your books to page 56, and we're going to talk through that today. So much of this practice, when I talk to service providers, is about standardizing what you do. You're going to make the most money when you have the least variability in what you do. That means in your products that you sell to these people, giving them less choice, making them think they have a choice, but they don't really have a choice, because if you add up the sushi menu, it's a lot cheaper to just buy the package. And at some point, you just stop offering the sushi menu. But as soon as you can get all the customers, whatever they do, whether they're a manufacturer of parts for my hip or whatever they do, the more you can systemize and standardize, the more profitable you're going to be. And your people don't
Mhm.
have to learn about 8 zillion tools, because, like, somewhere in FutureFeed, you've recorded that you always use Sophos antivirus. And so they have to be experts in that, but not in everything else.
Mhm.
So everything about what I'm sharing with you is so to help you standardize the dissemination and the documentation of whatever your standard practices are. So let me log in, and I'm going to not even get past the first dashboard because you're a service provider, although it won't come up when you only have one customer. When you have more than one customer, this screen is designed so you can keep an eye on everything. And since you only have one right now, we're not going to spend our time here, but you can see whatever framework they're doing. You can see their current score, their progress towards being fully assessed. You want more green check marks. Some things aren't ideally done with a green check mark. How many documents your customer has, there's no perfect number. So instead, we just give you a total. What is most interesting, though, when you start to manage more than one, is the last time somebody logged into it. If you
Mhm.
look in here and you see the last time someone logged into this one was 2022, either you're going to get fired or they're going to fail. But
Ruh-roh.
it's and this is part of your job. Like a lot of the job, and people don't talk about it, is to be the nanny for the company that you're serving and reminding them to add evidence and all that and letting them feel comfort. Like when you buy insurance, you feel comfortable driving down the road because, I mean, my stepmom was rear-ended yesterday. Her car was totaled because it was a EV. It wasn't a lot of damage, but she knew she had insurance. And so you feel more comfortable. Helping your customers feel comfortable that you're there keeping an eye on things is actually sort of an unreferenced and often a hidden part of the job, but it's part of the friction that makes you profitable because you don't have to worry that you're going to lose the customer because they depend on you, you depend on them, making it bilateral. So I understand you did the level one training. Since it's only you, we can go as fast or as slow as you want. But are there any questions that you were left with after talking to Chase?
Um, I think I have many. It's a lot
Okay.
to absorb. Um, Especially if they did have a fully built uh, set of policies and documents, I think that would help me frame the tool a lot better. But because there's very little to upload at this point, it's hard to really leverage the solution from my perspective.
Okay.
It's a relatively small company. I think it's fewer than around or fewer than 50 people. Um, so there's not going to be a lot of levels of bureaucracy. There's not going to be a lot of leadership in the platform. It
Hmm.
might be mostly driven by Winona IT, probably me, even long term. Um, excuse me. And so
Doing it for
um,
them basically and having them sign off and
potentially.
approve. Yeah. I mean, that
Hmm.
happens a lot. And some people design their service provider practice that way. Here's what we designed for you. First of all, let me tell you as a little secret. It's not really a compliance platform. At the end of the day, this was designed to be like the CIO's toolkit. It's an IT management platform because nobody really has something like that.
Hmm.
And the thing is, if you go through all the controls and 320 objectives, you have documented everything in IT and you've done it in an organized and structured way. So I may refer back to that as we talk for the next 45 minutes or so. Um, but think of it that way as a way that you can think about, well, my sales funnel for the next year in terms of projects. I'm going to capture them in here because they're giving me a reason to do projects. And then I have to organize the projects, and projects are really made are tasks that are combined in little pieces and parts. So this was really designed for the service provider. And while compliance is something that's like a side benefit of it, the real benefit ultimately is you can, I used to do banks and credit unions, and I would walk in and say, could I have a list of the tools and services that you depend on for your business?
Hmm.
80% of the time, there was no list. They kind of knew it, but there was no list, right? So, and then a little bit later in the conversation, well, what projects do you have coming up for the next year? And they would say, oh, we have this project. Well, how is that going to affect the other things that you already have? They didn't know because they didn't even know all the things they already have. And inevitably mistakes are made. So if you come to it from that perspective, QBRs start to get easier. If you're going to talk to them every quarter, you have a report of all the big picture stuff that's changing. And so having been in your shoes, I tried to design something that would give you compliance, no problem, but would also make your life and their life much better. So let's dive in a little bit. I'll just pull back the onion one layer deeper. The main organizational flow is the subway map, which is up here, and you go from left to right. You and your customer should celebrate each time you're moving through. At the end, I think the celebrations get a little old, but you start with the start, right? And I'm not going to go through every screen because you already did that. We can go through questions, but say, set a goal. We're going to get through the start thing, which is all of these different stations sort of inside of the subway line. We're going to get through that in a month, right? And then we're going to have all the basic details about the business. And you can assign pages in here to various people. So I'll take away the approvals and everything, and I can say this page, not this part of compliance, but like this page belongs to Ben, right? So if somebody doesn't agree with the address, talk to Ben. So, and in many cases, you're going to assign it to yourself, but in some cases, it's really healthy very early on to assign things to your client. And we wanted to make that go a little bit easier for you. So let's just say that Ben works for your client, and who knows the information best about this page? Your client, right? So if you want to give an assignment, this URL is unique. You can send it to him in an email, copy it and paste it in an email and say, Ben, I need you to do this page. Can you get it done by tomorrow? Ask me if there are any questions. When he logs in, he's not going to get lost trying to find the area of his assignment. It's going to take him straight to this page. It's called a deep link. And again, some of what we do here is not straight up compliance. The bottom part of this page isn't compliance, but it makes compliance easier. So, and it makes you the leader. So when I say we design this for service providers, we design this for you because you should be the authority in the room when you're helping your client. So if they haven't had if they can't answer how risk accepting they are, there are a couple of implications of that. One implication is every time you find a flaw that needs a POAM, a plan of action, you've got to do like the Chevy, the Cadillac, and the Rolls Royce of solutions, and you're wasting your time on 2 out of 3. So why not have the conversation in advance and just say, okay, we're a startup. We are always going to be risk of accepting, and there's nothing wrong with that. We're going to do the minimum that's legally required because we want to just survive for another day when we can one day protect our profits by being risk averse, right? And just the way I'm talking to you now, if you're talking to your client that way, you're positioning yourself relative to your client in a way that they're going to keep leaning on you for other advice, and you establish that very early. So when you assign this to them, you can either be the facilitator of that conversation, which is a great position, or you can say, go have a meeting and get back to me. Ultimately, it helps you and it helps them to know their risk appetite. So the deep links, important for communication with your clients. Assignments to know who owns the data on a particular page can be valuable. Not everybody uses that. The closer you get to the assessment, you start to get into, okay, for whether we use the assignments or not, maybe you assign somebody to literally navigate every page and review it or approve it. And when you approve it, you can put some initials on it. And accountability is such a big deal because ultimately, we want to know like who's the person that said this information was correct or not correct. There's lots of ways that people use that box up there, but those are some of them. The other thing that is very useful that may have been covered in the user training is the getting started. Every page has one of these, and they're all organized with one of these 4 things. Bottom line up front, why the heck does this page matter? That's so important for customers because when they get lost in it, like why there's a reason for everything that we do. And that reason is written down here. So you don't have to sit here listening to Mark Berman. So we start with the bottom line up front. For the people that want a few more details, we did our best to write up all the details about all the fields on the page. These are for the people like my father, my grandfather, who want the user manual, and it's 2025. There's not a book that's a user manual for something anymore. But instead, the user manual is built in, and we call this micro training. So if you want to talk about it to your clients, micro training is training the people with just enough information to get through what's in front of them on the page. not more, where you can start to forget things. Just give you what you need to finish your task. And even some notes for the assessor. How's the assessor going to look at the data on this page? How do we think the assessor will? Amy can tell. You probably haven't read all of these yet because you're so fresh here, but
yeah, I have to say it's really fun Jake, this is our first session together, me and Mark, and I've been using FutureFeed for a long time to help companies, but I had questions about a couple things like the risk averse, the risk profile. I wasn't really clear about that, and now it makes so much sense. So it's really fun to listen to you talk about how you would use a product if you were.
Well, I mean, basically, I've sat in Jake's shoes, and so I'm trying to
Yeah.
design the thing that I wish somebody had
Mhm.
given me.
Yeah.
Like that, I spend my whole life literally trying to imagine that I'm Jake today, or whoever the person is, Michael, Sally, Susan, it doesn't matter. But there are so
Well,
many things that are so difficult because people
yeah.
don't take the time to explain it.
And to
And
your point about assigning things to clients, we used to do that too. So we would take them, we'd handhold them through everything that was unique. But when it gets to the rinse and repeat on the 320, we would do a handful for them and then watch while we
mm,
said, now you do one. You take the evidence and connect it to the control and write up the summary statements, and we'll grade you as an assessor would grade you on how well you did on that. And then,
mm,
you're teaching them how to fish because really it's designed to belong to the client. The the future feed belongs to the client for future compliance,
mhm.
um and you're teaching them how to use it rather than just doing all the work for them, which is what a lot of advisors do.
And Mark, if I hope this is encouraging for you to hear, but while we're going through user one, we had a very specific question. I think it was about the company description and the annual revenue. I said,
Mhm.
hey, Chase, can you clarify like why this is a required field? And he went straight to that section and said, oh, well, here's a great time to transition and talk about why this is here. Just click this getting started link and look, it has a description of why that's necessary. So yeah.
I don't remember that description anymore.
Yeah,
But
right.
yes, yeah, like it was written so long ago. But yeah, so that's one of so just like for you, one of the things we want to deliver is you write things down for your compliance once and you use it many times. We got tired of answering the same question on tickets, so we write it down once,
Yeah.
and then it's used to answer many questions, hopefully before we get it. And we just added AI to it, so you can query the AI for support and get to the. I don't know if it would answer that one. I don't want to take the time, but hopefully it would. So so just to take a little milestone pause, you have your subway map, which gives you sort of direct navigation too, if you use it that way. This is the biggest level of navigation. Inside of that, we call this sort of like the city view. These are the streets in the city, and these are the houses on the streets. Um, so you have just enough context. I don't really care about contracts while I'm going through the company description, but I know that they're sort of related to the company setup, and all this is part of the start. So there should be a flow to it. And I would, even though you talked a lot in the beginning about documentation, that's already here. That's like the fourth stop. I would suggest that you try to work together with your client, even if you're working on behalf of your client, but work in order. It doesn't really help you to go out of order because you're going to have to do everything anyway. There's not that much fluff in here that isn't part of the SSP at the end of the day. And again, your training one should have taken you through these fields and more micro training in these green dots. And while this one doesn't have a link in it, sometimes there's videos in these. I don't remember, like links to other things. There's everything
Right.
you need to make those decisions is right on this page. Um, so you're going to walk through that. So I don't do the service provider thing that often either. So I'm going with the features that I think are most useful as a service provider. Let me go back to the dashboards because I kind of skipped that. So we talked about the order, the navigation. This is the main dashboard so that you and your client are looking at the same information 100% of the time. There's no, I used to hate, even as the service provider, that somebody would have to ask me, they'd have to call me when they were curious. If they do it anyway, they're going to call you anyway. But if you can get them in the habit of looking to see how they're doing, how's it coming along, for themselves, I think it only helps. And we want people to be curious. If you want to know why this media protection has any red because you think it's easy, well, it's not working when I click there, but when I click here, it takes me down. I can see exactly which controls are holding me up, and I can dig into there and I can open it in the practice or in the SSP report, and I can see what's going on. So you can use this homepage for navigation. By the way, one of the things that happens in these trainings, Amy, and demos is I just clicked on the pie chart and it didn't take me anywhere. So I'm writing a quick note to the team to say the pie chart's broken. And that happens like this software has a lot of features in it. So I'm always discovering little tweaks or things to improve. And that's the benefit of me doing the training sometimes. The next thing is you actually have 4 dashboards. The assessment prep center, remember how I talked about assigning controls? This brings everything in the platform in one place because it is a big platform. And so you can see who's been assigned to what. Maybe this person, Tony, is getting too many assignments and David is not getting enough assignments. And for the ones that are approved or not. So this gives you a great place to visit as a service provider to see how, at least who's working on what. And hopefully you start at the start, same order as we have in the subway. And maybe you don't have assignments down here, but you just get everybody through here. And so you can be like the coach on the bench, figuring out like which players are in the game and which ones aren't at a given stage. Critical dates, I'm going to be honest with you, it's sort of an early feature. We're going to make it better. But at an early meeting with your clients, setting goals for getting to these milestones, which are not customizable right now, that's why I say it's an early feature, is a good idea to sit with them and kind of walk through the whole process like I showed you in that PowerPoint. A cool thing about it is if you check something off, it will take a copy of the SSP for later reference and your current score. So you'll see your score getting better over time. This dashboard here is when we start talking about responsibilities. So RACI is huge for us. We really adopted that model. I think a lot of this industry has followed us because nobody talked about RACI until I instilled it in here. And now I see it in competing platforms. And I'm going to even lectures at some of these conferences, and they're talking about the importance of RACI and all that. It's a 20-year-old management. I didn't invent it, but it's so perfect for figuring out the thing that most auditors need is who is accountable for this thing, whatever it is. They don't want to waste their time. So talk to the person in charge. And if they don't believe the person in charge, your customer doesn't want them wandering the hallways asking random questions because people will be helpful and they won't know what the heck they're talking about. So in an audit sense, what you want is for everything that there is to know who the main person is on that. And the people that are doing the work that might have sort of corroborating information, those are the responsible people. And just having that organized takes assessments that I think the cyber review said would take 1 or 2 weeks on site. They're now down to 2 or 3 days because people are talking to the right people. So RACI is something you should do. It's not a administrative sort of overhead thing. It's something you should do all the time. There is a difference between tasks and POAMs. I don't know if that came clear in your user 1 training. Tasks are things that you do to document the compliance on a regular basis. It's the evidence. So evidence doesn't make itself generally. You can, we're adding some Microsoft integrations so you can automatically get your authorized user list out of Active Directory every month. Generally, tasks are go have a change management meeting and we need evidence that you had that meeting, something like that. So everything related to the ongoing evidence is task. Why is that? Why are POAMs a different thing? A POAM is somebody, an Amy of the world, identifies a gap between where you are and where a compliant company would be. And in order to close that gap, think of it as a sort of a one-time to do. I don't have any antivirus. I'm going to install antivirus. And then when I'm done, I'm done. I'm not going to go install antivirus again next week. I've already done it. So POAMs are one-time things that you get ready tasks or ongoing things generally. They can be one-time task assignments, and that's the differentiator. So on this dashboard, you can see things like a concentration of too many tasks in one person. Carlos has 7, all these people have 0, for example. Or in POAMs, too many of the POAMs 31 belong to Jason Anderson. Maybe he's the guy in charge, but maybe Jason could be leaning on some of these other people. So remember again, management tool as well while you're thinking about compliance. And then you can click on a person and you can see Chase is in charge of this or that. You can use this to navigate. You can see if he's overdue on a POAM or overdue on a task. So you can filter for all the ones he's accountable for or accountable and responsible or anything you want to do. So all of this is here in this dashboard area to help you in your regular interactions in any way that you want with your clients. Make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Okay.
appreciate you saying it from that perspective. Like I've seen all of this and understood that you can do it, and stepping back and seeing your heart in it is very, very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So let's talk about some other parts really from the service provider's perspective. So you're going to go through here. Hopefully you're going in order, and you can be assigning pages. Manage users is another great one to assign out. Managing roles. Once you explain to them that we give you a few default roles and we're looking at evolving this system in our tool. This is a really useful thing for especially somebody in the position you are with your current client. Default accountable role. It's in plain sight, right? But nobody ever notices that button.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. So if you set a
flash
default
red.
we started playing with animations. It's nothing we do seems to work. But if
Mm.
you set a default accountable person, in this case, I think it might be you. And let's just pretend it says Jake Barrows. And
Yeah.
then every time there's a new POAM, a new task, a new anything, you're the person that is by default put in charge, which sounds trivial, but you know what? Number one, you create new things and you forget to put somebody in charge. Now, at least there's somebody. Even if you're the wrong person, you're probably the right person to reassign it to the
Right.
really correct person. And out of the box, you have 110 controls and 320 objectives. So if you're really going to be that main traffic cop for this assessment or for this customer, then you apply to the existing items. So we haven't even seen anything in the assessment yet. And now you are accountable for every single control, every single objective, and anything new that's created. All you have to do is change it as a one-off from there. That turns out to be really useful because one of the worst things is you get to the auditor and it's blank. And the auditor's like, I want to move on to the next one. Who am I supposed to be talking to about this? And they don't know. And that costs you money. Every minute with that auditor is making, I think these days, the ranges between 150 lead assessor could be $300 an hour. You don't want them to be asking you questions about who to talk to. Like that's like an unforced error in sports. You just don't do that.
Yeah.
So you have your roles and you can ask the customer to capture their roles. And because they won't know at the beginning, like that HR actually has some controls where we might not have the HR person log in, as you learned probably in training 1. You have to name the HR person, but maybe the HR person lets you document what they do for them. But we need to know that there is an HR person who's going to answer about training. And so let them put the roles in their terms. And this is great for getting them in the habit of working with you and not having you do all the work, because while it would seem to be very healthy for your business, in the long run, they're going to get frustrated at the size of your bills. And so you got to let them do the things that they're comfortable with, and you do the things that are the leadership things. And both will be happy and you'll make plenty of money anyway. For teams, I assume this was covered in the training, so I'm not going to go in detail, but the one hint that I like to give people is when you're populating the team, populate it with roles rather than people, because if this Carlos person leaves as the CIO, he takes over all the team memberships. Whereas if Creighton Barnes here leaves, he's just off the team. The whoever's doing his job now won't get in there. The populate buttons are also really healthy to use. Here, our prior Amy's, the Amy's before Amy was here, went through the actual 171A, and we found all the controls where the auditor wants to speak to somebody in leadership. That's these controls. So if you use our IT leadership team, what you're doing is you're putting those people that are members of that team like one click away from the auditor. You can always edit it later, but anything you can do to do things in bulk is going to make it faster for you. So we're working on a system where you can create, instead of our default teams, you could like rename these defaults and all that. But this is a great list right now. You don't have to use them all. If there is no HR team, don't use it. But I can tell you on 3 controls, they're going to be looking to talk to somebody who knows about HR things. So teams can be very healthy to use. And even for small clients, I recommend that you explore that. You look thoughtful there, like you were going to ask a question.
I am, I wouldn't quite say overwhelmed, but there's so much here and so much to consider. And so, I am struggling to be an active listener as well as solutioning in the background at the same time. It's like, oh, how would I build out that team? What kind of roles would they want me to add
I
here?
get it.
So just trying to
I get it.
stay locked in and not wander too far over to the actual fix or the actual solution to the problem. So thanks for
Oddly, I'm going
noticing.
to point. Yeah, oddly, I'm going to point to our website navigation. This is so critical because I said it earlier. I'm going to say it again. You are capturing everything that is IT for an organization. That is a
Right.
huge thing. You can't let your focus go away from the page that you're on at any given time. So I appreciate that your mind is wandering to other places, but if we're talking about tools and you're talking about tools that are in the cloud, this is where keep your mind here. The tool's going to take care of making sure that it all adds up to a great SSP. You don't have to worry about how you're going to assess the tools. Let's start with just having a list of them, right? So
Yeah.
it is a lot, but on any one page, it's not a lot, right? What tools do you have? Which ones did you decide to put in place that aren't in place yet? And which ones did you used to have? That isn't that hard. And when you look at, so you can look at a tool in the sort of pop-up view, or you can go like, okay, this tool has this does not have CUI. This one does have CUI. Oh, it does? What kind of CUI does it have? Like let the tool almost like give into the tool and let it hold your hand. So now we have CUI located in 3 tools. This you can share it. It has 3 types of CUI in it, and I know that. It would be overwhelming to think of going through all of the tools and deciding which tools have what kind of CUI. But when I'm focused on you can share it, and especially when the customer's there and they know how they use the tool, it isn't hard to figure that out. Is it company
Yeah.
sensitive information or just CUI? Is it public facing? No, it's not public facing. So you can just click here and go no. So you just kind of let the tool do the work with you. And I think it won't be as bad as it won't feel as overwhelming. I don't want to say bad. It's not the right word to use. The there is a lot to do, but you do things one at a time. You don't take giant leaps. You put one foot in front of the
Right.
other and go through it. This is a
And
page I'd like to point out to go ahead.
I was just gonna say I know my one big takeaway, I put in big block letters and put stars out by the on the outside just to reinforce it, is go in order. And I can see the value of that the more you discuss. Um, and the more you say, hey, let them do this part, I can see the CEO wanting to do this on his own. Like, yeah, you don't get it
Yeah.
as much as I do. Just let me do it myself. So appreciate it.
They all jump to
I'm
assess
locked
and they
in.
start answering at assess. They all jump to, it's like buried in the middle and they go there. And you lose a lot of the efficiency of going in order and also the focus when that happens. Um, I do want
Okay,
to point out there
great.
are some bonus features sort of or whatever. They're not directly towards compliance. Like this vulnerability thing, it has long bothered me that the
Hmm.
vulnerability, the way it works for a lot of companies, is you get a scan and the guys work on it, and they often put off the hardest one, sometimes for years, and you kind of need a scoreboard. And so this is not strictly compliance. Compliance is that you have a vulnerability management system and that you live up to your policy of remediating vulnerabilities. Keeping score, this is more of a management part of it, but I think it can be very useful to you as an MSP to make sure that even your team isn't just taking the easy ones. They're actually getting to the root cause of the tougher vulnerabilities. We're having the conversation. You got to get rid of that copier because its firmware is, I know it's an expensive copier, but the firmware can't be changed and it's completely vulnerable. So some of the things in here
Yeah.
are a little bit more management-y than compliance. Having a vendor list, some of your customers or your customer might have their own vendor management software. You don't have to use this part if you don't want to use it. It ties in a little bit, but we're not going to be as good here as a full-blown vendor management solution. Budget is something that is this, you can look like a hero if you don't do budgets for your clients. Since you're making a list of all your tools and services and you know the licensing cost, the support cost, usually about 20% of licensing. And with a nice exercise that you can do with your customer, the internal labor is you just sit in a room and you say, here's the total that HR tells us we spent on IT last year. You guys tell me month by month, divided up by tools, where did you spend your time? What percentage? And then you do the same thing on your bill to them for the external labor, and you suddenly have a budget. For most CEOs, they actually hate detail that's deeper than this. They just want to know that we spend 70% on licensing and only 2% on labor because our strategy is outsourcing. And our support, like, this gives them such a comfort. I can't really explain it, but they don't want to just feel like IT is a black hole of spending. And you would think they would want like reams of data. What they really just want is that pie chart to know that there's
The
some
pie chart.
structure to it. Yeah. So
Great.
that's in here. But this is not compliance. So that's another thing. Just skip the budget on, like, that's a great year 2 project after you've done compliance to start putting numbers now that you have your list of tools. Grow into using FutureFeed. Don't do everything at once if you don't need it. And this is a clear example of something you don't need, but something that will be great after year 2 when you have it and you can sort and you can say, well, this is where most of your money is going into CompuWatch or whatever the heck it is. That's the QBR that somebody wants to pay attention to and come to, and they're gonna enjoy that with you. All right, we are
Great.
5 minutes to the originally scheduled ending time. I can go on a little bit longer. I have a few things I could show you that'll take another 10 or 15 minutes. Do you want to do that, or is it enough and you want to come back another time?
Ooh, that's a great question. I do appreciate having the FaceTime with you. So I would appreciate the extra time if you have it, but I know
Sure.
everyone's always got things to jump to. I've already got a full page of notes here, and hopefully I can take these away pretty well.
Well,
But
I
yeah,
have more time this
if you've got a
afternoon if
little bit
you've
extra
got it.
time,
I'll do another 10 or 15 minutes. Okay.
well,
So,
thank you very much. I was behind, so I appreciate you taking the extra effort.
no worries. So let's just go on to documents. And I think you got a lot of this in user ones, but I'm going to reinforce how important the populate button is, because again, our suggested templates, clean desk policy, there are 7 controls that are somewhat relevant to the clean desk policy existing in a company. So if you take our policy, which is this, and then you go in later, I'm not going to go and edit it right now, but you go in and you literally delete ours because they already have one and paste theirs in. You've now connected their policy to the 7 relevant controls. That's a big accelerator for you. So populate is almost always really, really helpful. The other thing, as a service provider, you're not going to do it when you have one customer. But if you want to start creating a bunch of policies and procedures for the way you do things, you can be listed here with your company's name and your toolkit, and you don't have to charge them for it. So all you have to do is, I mean, if you want to be generous and share it with the world, we'll put you on this list. Or for all of your clients, we'll make it have a status of included or, show it now so that you can get your policies without any mystery to it, like straight to your customers. And you can just go in and say, copy all my policies into my customers' um, uh, subscription. The other thing that you can do, and this is where I usually talk about this, is what if you want to get more than just the policies and procedures that you've written for your customers in? If you want to, you can buy an extra subscription of FutureFeed and fill out all the controls and make POAMs in advance and projects in advance. Make it your way of delivering your service. And every time you get a new customer, you put in, when you put the order in, you say, please clone my template to the new subscription. And then you're looking at your own stuff, not blank pages. And it's a huge, huge accelerator. It's much easier to edit your own work than to edit my work. And it's easier to edit anything than to look at a blank page. So I am literally not trying to sell you anything. And there's obviously no point if you only have one customer right now. But by the time you get to customer number 5, you're going to get tired of writing the same notes and the same things over and over again for each customer. So cloning your template of your own best practices, which are not mine, they're not Amy's, they're yours, that can be that can be a big gain of efficiency for you. So just kind of remember that exists. We'll go over to the assess area where I don't have a lot to offer in terms of special service provider things. I will point out that there are a couple of features that probably aren't coming up, but if you run into somebody and they've already done ISO, or they do CMMC and they want to do ISO 27001 or NIST CSF or RMF or something like that, you can copy the framework that you're in or any of the other frameworks to any target. And then we have already pre-mapped. We don't copy the answers to the assessment. We do copy all the evidence. And look at this page, for example, 3.11. The summary notes, these are the answers, met or not met. But all of the rest of this, all the documents that support it, all of that stuff gets copied. And that's where most of the work is. So at the end of the day, if you're in ISO, because you copied, I think it's 5.2 in ISO is the same as 3.11, you should look at how they characterize their questions and then say met or not met. And if you're not sure, you just read all the evidence and you just make the final decision. We don't want to take that final decision away from the person whose organization who's signing on the dotted line, but we do want to do 80% of the work. So that's something I think important to point out to service providers, that we have the copy framework. We also have the copy control, which allows you to do it one control at a time. And so if I want to go 3.11 is the source, and I want to copy, because it's the same group of people that get interviewed on 3.15 for least privilege, I can do that. So I can do it either sort of automatically like this, or I can remove all this and I can go to the next step. And I can say from 3.11, I want to copy just the interview people to all the rest of the 3s. The check marks mean we recommended it. So maybe you're like, this is a small company. It's the same group to interview for everybody. And you can do it within a framework too. So callback, I know I'm going a little fast. You can either merge or overwrite. It's very granular. Think again about doing things in bulk. So if you know your customer and you know that this group that you've picked here for the interview, you want to use them on all the controls. God bless you. Come into copy control and you're going to copy it. So we'll go back to the recommendations section. So we may only have a few recommendations. I'll remove them. And then we will go through here and we'll say, okay, I don't think you can do all the controls at once, but you can do the interview for all of access control, and then you can scroll down and so forth. There's lots of little tweaks that you may discover, and by all means ask us questions, all about making it faster for you. Sometimes people don't want to go through interview, examine, and test with the client in the room. They just want to kind of go over the scores. You can hide the various sections or rearrange them. You want to put this down here, or so by all means, create the experience that you want to create for yourself and your
Okay.
client. The SSP is not an area that you visit often, but it is where everything comes together. So you have all the sections of the SSP. It's mostly meant to be a report, but sometimes in some of the parts of it, we give you the ability to edit here. Generally, if you want to edit something here, let me find one that's better to interact with. You're going to hit the edit pencil here, and it's going to take you to the source of whatever it was in here. Your future feed, this is your sales funnel for next year if you have a bunch of CMMC clients. Because along the way, when you say no and you poem something, or you say we need a tool or whatever it is, that it all accumulates in here. And it's actually kind of a fun management exercise. I like to go through here and I want to do a firewall project. So I search for all the poems that mention a firewall. I select them all. I add it to a project. And now I have a firewall project. And I don't want to be talking to my customer about 116 poems. I'll tell you what I do want to talk to them about, 10 or 12 projects. And I want to start putting prices on those projects. And I want to get some estimate of how this one is going to improve compliance a lot more than this one. I think you can get the details of how to build projects and manage them from the training 1 and training 2. But here, I just want to point out the importance of your QBRs and your time with your client is often best spent in organizing the projects. That's why it's called FutureFeed. Organizing your vision and their vision of the future of IT for their company together with them, putting things in the right order. Find me all the things that have the highest impact. I can't think about anything else right now. Or find me all the cheap things that are $1 sign and also have a high impact. Maybe I'm going to start with those projects. You may have missed it in the earlier thing, but when you rate the individual poems, you have ratings for impact, effort, and cost, but you start over again in project portfolio because you can have a bunch of little things, but getting the whole project done is no longer a little thing, right? You have to think about the project as a whole, not just of all the pieces. Yeah. And right here from this chart, you can edit it. I can say it's $5 signs. And obviously they're disappearing from my view because I have a filter view. Let me reset the view, reset. So that's that. On the deliverables, not a lot to talk about here. This is fully customizable. So the main report is the cyber readiness report. A lot of people also look at the SSP report. These 2 buttons I just want to point out to you. You can customize the content of the SSP. So if there are things that you don't believe in or you don't agree with, you can set company defaults. You can set what the assessor sees. So if you want the system boundary to not be seen by your people, but the assessor should see the system boundary, see it's there for the assessor or not from you, or it could be the other way around. You want to be able to look at something, for example, I'll tell you one that comes up a lot. Some people don't want the assessor to see what isn't in place yet. So they'll hide the POAM tools and services for the assessor because they want the assessor to think they're perfect. I actually think that's the wrong strategy. I think the assessor would love to know that you're good, however good you are, you're going to get better.
Right.
But I can't, it's not up to me to decide how to do it. So people will go through and on the assessor's view, hide all the things that aren't yet in place. See all the pendings. I doubt you would hide a domain, but you could. So there's some copy buttons to copy from the views, like in bulk. That's a button that people miss. Customizing the format is also important for a lot of service providers. If you don't want to have, some customers don't want your name on their report, so you can turn it off. Or I don't know why you would turn off the company name, but you could. If you don't like the logo, some of the visuals we have, you can turn them off. Just turn off all the images, and then there's no images. And you can change the titles and the confidentiality notice, things like that. So I'm pointing that out. That's there for you.
Great.
I'm going to take you to one more place and then we'll conclude. You don't have this, nor do you need this now. I just want to expose you to it so you know that it's here. So cloning is the technology that I talked about, where you get an extra subscription and you clone it when you get a new customer. If you request it, and currently we don't charge for it because you can see it's kind of a crappy interface, like it's not all the way done. Nevertheless, it's useful. If you want to put in default summary notes, and this, unfortunately, I'm in somebody else's, so I don't want to show you too much of their product, but
No problem.
you can put in default summary notes for 3.11, and then you can push it. So I have these default summary notes, and I can decide which customers I want to push my new notes to and which ones I don't.
Nice.
So there's a whole system to manage like your work and push it out to your clients. If I want to edit the summary notes, there's an edit. It's just a draft. Somebody's obviously playing with it. Hopefully nobody would push out that draft. And then also for policies, procedures, and templates, you have the ability to like add the policies in here and then have a new revision and push it out to all your clients.
Great.
And so this is called library, right? Or vendors if you're selling the templates, but this is out here. And then basically here, you can put we'll have all your clients in here so that we can create a package that the Jake templates. And if you wanted to sell them, you could sell them. If you don't want to sell them, just provide them to your customers. It's here. And it's a feature that we'll work on probably in 2026. Just as a service provider, again, you don't need it now. You should know that's part of the offering. Also, we have a partner portal that we're working on now that will kind of integrate with that. Those are my main topics of the day for service provider training.
Yeah,
Questions?
fantastic.
Okay.
I
Thank you.
don't. I mean, there is a lot here. Yeah, and I have some key takeaways. And I think my biggest one, just processing as we were going, is when we first started the engagement and signed on with FutureFeed, I was told, hey, make sure you get everything ready before you invite the client into FutureFeed. And I'm going to flip that. I'm going to actually schedule something with them as soon as possible and equip them, teach them men to fish. Just in hearing your heart for the platform, seeing how it can be a management tool, not just run by the compliance side of Winona IT, but a tool that they can use moving forward. That's huge. And so I want to get him in here as soon as possible. So
Okay.
thank you. I really appreciate your time today.
I will give you counsel that if you feel overwhelmed at what you said about 15 minutes ago, they're going to feel it times 5. So
Yeah,
get
sure.
them into the tool, but keep the assignments very limited. There's a lot. Don't try to tell them about all the features. That's actually my problem in giving training and presentations. I'm proud of many things in here and I talk too much about them and it's too much for people to consume. Get them in and give them the comfort of get yourself in the sample company or something and give them the comfort that everything that we need is in here. And I'm only going to give out the work to you in little bits at a time, but I'm not going to work in some closet somewhere and then just give it to you. You can always see what I'm doing and you can ask me questions, but chunk it out for them, especially at the very beginning. Small chunks are better than big chunks. They'll figure out
Right.
that it's a good tool and you don't need to do that. And they're going to
Yep.
figure out that you're good because you're like their tour guide and you're curating their work. Okay. Well, thank you for your time. I think a recording automatically comes to you. If it doesn't, put in a ticket because, like I said, I don't do this that often, so I don't know about all the administrative parts. But we definitely did record it, so you should have that for reference and get a transcript and all that stuff. Okay.
Great.
All right.
Thank you so
thanks.
much for your time. I appreciate
All
it.
right. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Amy,
Bye.
for coming.
Thank you. Bye.